Yo, it's the MOPOWERZ, and we are back again, this time on Friday the 13th. I'm telling you, absolutely crazy. Is it the 13th yet? Or the 12th? Either way, it's a fantastic Friday. And I tell you, we've been doing great things here with book reading. Amazing. And if you all have not checked out the past two videos in regards to the Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, go back and review that material. Take some notes. I'm sure that things are still the same. When you really look at it historically and progressively. But needless to say, we're going to jump straight into this book. Now, remember, this book has a few covers, especially the one with the woman with the band lock around her head. That, as I stated, I tried to put in a thumbnail, but it was just too big. So I just came up with Carter G. Woodson himself. What a better way to have a thumbnail. Respect. Okay? And we're moving along to chapter 3 here. Right here. Miseducation of the Negro. We're going to do like a chapter a day. Keep things a little short, brief, more tolerable. Okay? And chapter 3 is how we drifted away from the truth. How then did the education of the Negro take such a trend? The people who maintained schools for the education of certain Negroes before the Civil War were certainly sincere. And so were the missionary workers who went south to enlighten the freedmen. After the results of that conflict had given the Negroes a new status. These earnest workers, however, had more enthusiasm than knowledge. They did not understand the task before them. This undertaking, too, was more of an effort toward social upliftment than actual education. Their aim was to transform the Negroes, not to develop them. Did you hear that? To transform the Negro, not to develop him. The freedmen who were to be enlightened best friends of the race, ill-taught themselves, followed the traditional curricula of the times, which did not take the Negro into consideration except to condemn or pity him. In geography, the races were described in conformity with the program of the usual propaganda to engender in white as a race hate of the Negro and in the Negro's contempt for themselves. A poet of distinction was selected to illustrate the physical features of the white race, a bedecked chief of a tribe, those of a red, a proud warrior, the brown, a prince, the yellow, and a savage with a ring in his nose, the black Negro, of course, stood at the foot of the social ladder. The description of the various parts of the world was worked out according to the same plan. The description of the various parts of the world was worked out according to the same plan. The parts inhabited by the Caucasians were treated in detail. Less attention was given to the yellow people, still less to the red, very little to the brown, and practically none to the black race. Those people who are far removed from the physical characteristics of the Caucasians or who do not materially assist them in the domination or exploitation of others were not mentioned except to be belittled or decried. From the teaching of science, the Negro was likewise eliminated, even though we gave the world the measurements, the facts, the information, the everything about science. But that was then. This is now. Yes, we were mighty builders of the world. We were the first people here on the planet. It doesn't account for anything in this society unless we do it again. And the only way that we can do it again is through our own selves. No one is going to help us do it, and they're not giving it back freely. Okay? The beginnings of science in various parts of the Orient were mentioned, but Africans' early advancement in this field was omitted. Isn't that something I just said? That is so sad. You know, it's like with religious dogma. It comes from the Orient. The Orient. All of that Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism from the Orient. After, these are later people. Yet, they educate you and you know nothing of yourself and you wonder why you're maladjusted. I'm just saying. Students who were not told that the ancient Africans of the interior knew sufficient science to contact poisons of arrowheads, to mix durable colors for painting, to extract metals from nature and refine them for development in the industrial parts. Did you just hear what I said? Students were not told that ancient Africans of the interior knew sufficient science to concoct poisons for arrowheads, to mix durable colors for painting, to extract metals from nature and refine them for development in the industrial arts. Very little was said about the chemistry and the method of the Egyptian embalming, which was a product of the mixed breeds of Northern Africa, not or now known in the modern world as colored people. Us. Did you hear what I just said? And the study of language in school, pupils were made to scoff at the Negro dialect as some peculiar possessions of the Negro which they should despise, rather than directed to the study of the background of this language as a broken down African tongue, in short, to understand their own linguistics history, which is certainly more important for them than the study of the French phonetics or historical Spanish grammar. To the African language as such, no attention was given except in the case of the preparation of traders, missionaries, and public functionaries to exploit the natives. This number of persons thus trained, of course, constituted a small fraction, hardly deserving attention. From literature, the African was excluded altogether. He was not supposed to have expressed any thought worth knowing. The philosophy in the African proverbs and in the rich folklore of that continent was ignored to give preference to that developed on the distant shores of the Mediterranean. Most missionary teachers of the freedmen, like most men of our time, had never read the interesting books of travels in Africa and have never heard of the Tariqa es-Sadong. I'm going to spell that out. Tarikhes hyphen UDAN. That's the Sudan. That's what they're saying, okay? In the teaching of the fine arts, these instructors usually started with Greece by showing how the art was influenced from without, but they omitted the African influence, which scientists now regard as significant and dominant in early Hellas. They failed to teach the student a Mediterranean melting pot with the Negroes from Africa bringing their wares, their ideas, and their blood therein to influence the history of Greece. I'm just saying. And this was written back in 1933. Why haven't you read the book? Why don't you pick up the book? I'm just saying. Versus you want to get a pack of cigarettes, you can buy the book for the same price. I'm just saying. Hey, knowledge, if applied, is power. But knowledge itself is power too. But it's even more effective when you apply that knowledge. And obviously, we are not applying the knowledge that we know, even the conscious community, as they would want to call it. Neither one of them is helping each other. They're out for their own selves to get the bag themselves versus bringing the bag together. Even all of these big YouTubers. I'm just saying, they don't come collectively together. But they want to tell you what you should be doing. And none of which they're telling you is of a self-direction for the upliftment of the future of our children. Not a one. Not a one. Name me two big YouTubers that has come up with an idea that's helping the people effectively, like applying, like on the job training, not just videos. I'm just saying, collectively. But anyway, moving right along. They failed to teach you all of these good things about Black people. You know, people that look like me, because they plan to exterminate us, wipe us completely out. They've already wiped our history out of their curriculums and their educational systems, but yet and still, they don't teach you about you. You have to teach you about you, because your enemy is not going to teach you about you. And why do I say that they're an enemy? Because if they were not enemies, they would teach you about yourself. Or with this age of information, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. Pick up a book today, especially the miseducation of the Negro. Okay? Now, in the teaching of the fine arts, these instructors usually started with Greece by showing how the art was influenced from without, but they omitted the African influence with sciences now regarded as significant and dominant in the early Hellas. They failed to teach students the Mediterranean melting pot with the Negroes from Africa, bringing their wares, ideas, and their blood therein to influence the history of Greece, Carthage, and Rome, making desire father to the thought. Our teachers are either ignore these influences or endeavor to belittle them by working out theories to the contrary. The bias did not stop at this point, for it invaded the teachings of the professions. Negro law students were told that they belonged to the most criminal element in the country, and an effort was made to justify the procedure in the seats of injustice, where law as interpreted as being one thing for the white man and a different thing for the Negro. In constitutional law, the spinelessness of the U.S. Supreme Court in permitting the judicial nullification of the 14th and the 15th Amendment, and still is boldly upheld in our few law schools. So if you don't know what the 14th and 15th Amendment is, go check it out. But most importantly, always remember number 13. When you go to prison, you become a slave. You think you a slave now out here. Go to prison. Nowadays, crazy. Who wants to go to prison today? Only a fool would do that. In medical schools, Negro were likewise convinced in their inferiority and being reminded of their role as germ carriers. The prevalence of syphilis and tuberculosis among Negroes was especially emphasized, without showing that these maladies are more deadly among the Negroes for the reason that they are Caucasian diseases. And since these plagues are new to the Negroes, these sufferers have not had time to develop against them the immunity which time has permitted in the Caucasian. Other diseases to which Negroes easily fall prey were mentioned to point out the race as an undesirable element when this condition was due to the Negro's economic and social status. Little emphasis was placed upon immunity of the Negro from the diseases like the yellow fever and influenza, which are so disastrous to whites. Yet the whites were not considered inferior because of this differential resistance to these plagues. Hey, the Caucasian brought all these diseases with them over here to America. Yeah. And what they did was so ruthless and cruel. What they did to what they called the red man, when they gave them blankets full of chicken pox, and they knew that they were full of chicken pox. It's all now that was biological warfare back then, to wipe you off, to take what belonged to you, and then belittle you after the fact that they are the cause of the problem. And they still do that to this very day. Even in wars, world wars, these kings and queens, they back these wars, and they give you a story of something different to taint your thinking, to miseducate you on the real facts. In history, of course, the Negro had no place in this curriculum. He was pictured as a human being of a lower order, unable to subject passion to reason, and therefore useful only when made the hewer of wood and the drawer of water for others. No thought was given to the history of Africa, except so far as it has been a field of exploitation for the Caucasian. You might study the history as it was offered in our system from the elementary school throughout the university, and you will never hear Africa mentioned except in the negative. You would never thereby learn that Africans first domesticated the sheep, the goat, cow, and developed the idea of trial by jury, produced the first stringed instruments, and gave the world its greatest boon in the discovery of iron. You would never know that prior to the Mohammedan invasion, about 1000 AD, these natives in the heart of Africa had developed powerful kingdoms, which were later organized as the Songhai Empire on the order of that of the Romans and boasting of the similar grandeur. Now, if you're not familiar with the Songhai Empire, that's over in the West. Mali and all of that, Songhai Empire, Mali Empire, those are Western African empires that existed, which were taken by force by Caucasians. And it has never been the same since the invasion first of the Mohammedans, because the Arabs invaded us first. I'm just saying. Real history. Unlike other people, then the Negro, according to this point of view, was an exception to the natural plan of things, and he had no such mission as that of an outstanding contribution to culture. The status of the Negro then was justly fixed as that of an inferior. Teachers of Negroes in their first schools after emancipation did not proclaim any such doctrine, but the content of their curricula justified these inferences. An observer from outside of the situation naturally inquires why the Negro, many of whom serve their race as teachers, have that they teaching you. Your connection is unstable. Please wait while we're okay. I'm getting there. Okay. According to the point of view, YouTube was an exception to the unnatural plan of things and had no such mission as that of an outstanding contribution to the culture. The status of the Negro then was justly fixed as that of an inferior. As I stated, teachers of Negroes in their first schools of emancipation did not proclaim any such doctrine, but content of their curricula justified these inferences. And as I stated, we have not been able to change our situation. These teachers, however, are powerless. They are powerless Negroes have no control over their education and have little voice in their other affairs pertaining to thereto. In a few cases, Negroes have been chosen as members of public schools, boards of education, and some have been appointed members of private black boards. But these Negroes are always such a small minority that they do not figure in the final working out of the educational program. The education of the Negroes, then, the most important thing in the uplift of the Negroes, is almost entirely in the hands of those who have enslaved them and now segregate. Thank you, Mo. With miseducated Negroes in control themselves, with miseducated Negroes in control themselves, however, it is doubtful that the system would be very much different from what it is, or that it would rapidly undergo change. The Negroes thus placed in charge would be the products of the same system and would show more conception of the task at hand than do whites who have educated them and shaped their minds as they would have them to function. Negro educators of the day may have more sympathy and interest in the race than the whites now exploiting Negro institutions as educators, but the former have no more vision than their competitors, taught from books of the same bias, trained by Caucasians of the same prejudiceness, or by Negroes of enslaved minds. One generation of Negro teachers after another have served for no higher purpose than to do what they are told to do. In other words, a Negro teaching, instructing Negro children is in many respects as white teachers, thus engaging with them because of the mindset of the teachers. For the programming in each case is about the same. There can be no reasonable objection to the Negro doing what the white man tells him to do. If the white man tells him to do what is right, but right is purely relative. The present system, under the control of the whites, trains the Negro to be white, at the same time convinces him of the impropriety, of the impossibility of his becoming white. I'm going to say that again. The control of the white trains the Negro to be white, and at the same time convincing him of the impropriety, of the impossibility of his becoming white. I hope you got that. It compels the Negro to become a good Negro for the performance of which his education is ill suited. Wow. For the white man's exploitation of the Negro through economic restriction and segregation, the present system is sound and will doubtless continue until this gives place in the saner policy of actual interracial cooperation, not the present farce or racial manipulation in which the Negro is a figurehead. History does not furnish a case of the elevation of a people by ignoring the thought and aspiration of the people thus served. This is slightly dangerous ground here. However, for the Negro mind has been all but perfectly enslaved, in that he has been trained to think what is desired of him. The highly educated Negroes do not like to hear anything uttered against this procedure because they make their living in this way, and they may feel that they must defend the system. Sounds familiar? Look at all your black politicians. In fact about it, just from my research, even in religious dogma, that's why God never chose politicians. He always chose the uneducated. Something like that, right? Thank you, Mo. For miseducated Negroes ever act otherwise, and if they so express themselves, they are easily crushed by the large majority to the contrary, so that the procession may move on without interruption. Wow. That's crazy, but real. One more paragraph and we're done with chapter 3, okay? The result then is that the Negroes, thus miseducated, are of no service to themselves and none to the white man. Minister Farrakhan said that the white man has let you go. Elijah Muhammad said that the white man has let you go. Malcolm X said that the white man has let you go. Pharaoh has let you go, but you won't let go of Pharaoh. Most of people who have dreams and aspirations never reach them because of a 4-letter word, and that is fear. And that is the same problem that we have right now as a whole. Even in the days of intense perishness among us, we still can't find a way. Programming. Like I say, even those in the conscious community, give me 5 of them, give me 3 of them that has come together and actually done something in their own little town, that's actually helping people and showing them how they do this. I'm just saying. Age of information, no excuse today. No excuse today. People who look like me have nobody else to blame today except themselves. Anyway, the highly educated Negroes, moreover, do not need the Negro professional or commercial classes because Negroes have been taught that whites can serve them more efficiently in these spheres. Reduce then to teaching and preaching. Oh my God. Did you just hear what I said? Reduced. Reduced. Like a fraction to just teaching and preaching. Look at all these rich preachers we got. And they're doing nothing but teaching you the white man's religion. You have to ask yourself. You really have to ask yourself, is Mo telling the truth? Is this just Mo's, side of the story? No, it's an actual fact, and it's right in your face. And if you can't see it in your face, you are blind. Totally. Even in schools, like I said, when you send your children to school, you send them to be educated by someone that doesn't like you because the program was designed to destroy you and reduce you to teachers and preachers. Stop me when I'm lying. The Negroes will have no outlet but to go down a blind alley. If the sort of education which they are now receiving is to enable them to find the way out of their present difficulties. That's chapter 3. Y'all know I'm not lying. Look at all these people who got master's degrees, PhDs, that look like me. Caucasians still call them niggers, and they look down on you like you haven't achieved anything. Yet we are the masters of the sciences that we brought to the world. But that was then. All of that has been wiped out of our program. All of that has been wiped out of our program. You have to re-educate yourself. If not, you will stay miseducated. Thanks for viewing. You all. It's your brother, MOPOWERZ, where knowledge is power. Remember, it is your third eye that makes you shine like jewelry. And if you haven't done so already, press the subscribe button below. View the videos, hit the notification bell, hit the like bell, share the information with family, friends, co-workers, anyone that you come into contact with. It is a magnificent way to jumpstart your conversation. The miseducation of the Negro. Just think if we had conversations like this daily versus listening to Gunna as we stand on the blocks. Just think if we would have conversations like this standing on the block. Even if we were out there in the streets working those jacks, just think of the conversations that we could have like this and what it would actually do. It would transform you, because upon learning knowledge and understanding the plight of your own people, it is almost impossible for you to look back, to go back the other way in which you've just been rescued from. But sadly, we look to others to do that job for us versus ourselves. And we wonder why we're in this predicament that has lasted how long? Since 1555. Thanks for viewing, you all. Remember, never ever give up on your dreams. And by all means, get educated for yourself.